Fire Chief Gamble, is that you? Still connecting. Yes. Yes, I will change his name.
We're just about ready to start. If council could just turn on their videos so we can clerk and get attendance. Okay, I see we're all back, so I'll reconvene the regular evening meeting or afternoon meeting of the Township Council. And the next item on the agenda is the Mayor and Council report. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to start off by congratulating all of the Langley High School grade 12 graduates. Their perseverance and resilience throughout this pandemic has shown their incredible strength and spirit. They should be extremely proud of all their accomplishments. Council and I wish the 2021 graduating class all the best in their future endeavors. And certainly, they've gone through an experience that none of us had to go through in our grade 12 year with all the pandemic and all the plans that usually go with it. But it looks like things are starting to open up a bit where we can have gatherings of 50 people outside. So perhaps they can have some nice little grad celebrations with their family and friends. But congratulations. Good news was delivered from the province this morning. Starting tomorrow, more COVID-19 restrictions will be eased. Given this, the township plans to open more amenities subject to public health orders and limitations. The township is planning to open the Otter Co-op Outdoor Experience Water Park at the already open Aldergrove Credit Union Community Center and Outdoor Pool in early July for registered sessions. Also planned for July openings are outdoor day camps and the Walnut Grove Community Center's fitness facility for registered sessions as part of a phased opening of fitness facilities. Additional fitness facility openings at the ACUCC and the W.C. Blair Recreation Center will follow. In addition, the township is also working with the school district and hopes to offer the Active Beyond the Bell program in some schools beginning mid-September, subject to public health orders and both township and school district safety protocols. This is great news for residents and staff, and we hope to continue to open more amenities as restrictions are lifted. Over the past couple of weeks, Council attended several events. From May 31st to June 4th, Councilors Arneson, Long, and Whitmarsh attended the virtual FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. Topics included communicating in a virtual world, which we're doing now, using community data for an inclusive recovery, building connected communities for Canada's future, and ending homelessness, lessons from home and abroad. On June 1st, Councillor Kunst attended the 2277 Corps Virtual Annual Ceremonial Review to celebrate the Army Cadets' successful completion of the 2020-2021 training year. And on June 11th, Councillor Richter attended a virtual fireside chat with the Honourable Aaron O'Toole, Leader of the Official Opposition. So that's my report, and I go back to my screen. Oh, here we go. And turn it over if any member of council would like to add anything. If not, thank you for listening, and we'll, Councillor Kunst. Councillor Kunst?
Can you hear
me? There
me?
you go. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, it says my internet connection's unstable. I don't know if you can hear me. Anyway, I'll keep trying. I attended the Langley Resource Seniors Resource Center. They nominated or awarded the Seniors of the Year award for Bill and Arlene Pike. So I just wanted to recognize them tonight. And I also attended the vigil at the Arboretum in honor of the 215 children that were found in Kamloops. So I just wanted to recognize that as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. And Councillor Arneson.
Thank you, Worship. I already spoke to the earlier matter. I did go to Metro, the Climate Action Committee last Friday. So I'll just talk about the Fraser Valley Regional Library because there's some updated information regarding opening hours. So a press release has been put out today. As of June 21st, there will be extended library hours, and anybody interested in finding out more details can go online and find out about it. Also, June is National Aboriginal History Month, and the FPRL is celebrating the work of Indigenous authors from across Canada. They will also be celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st with special pre-recorded Indigenous dance performances and baby time program. And I'm personally confident that the recent and terrible tragic discovery at the Kamloops Residential School that has heightened public interest and concern will appreciate the fact that there are these special offerings for the month of National Indigenous People and aligning with many. Oh, my screen just disappeared. Anyways, I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And you reminded me, I did attend, or was invited to the Kwantlen First Nation by Chief Marilyn Gabriel, just for and our member of Parliament, Teiko Van Papta, was there also, just for a time for us to share with them and the grief that they're experiencing and talk to their elders, talk to the community, and a very moving experience. And certainly, I know they were doing a lot towards the healing process and a lot that we can learn. So with that, I'll move on. Metro Vancouver and other regional committee representatives report. I know it's not to the Metro Board yet, but it will be coming. The Metro 2050 update, regional growth strategy update, is going to be going to the board. I was on the planning committee, we discussed it. And then it'll be going out for consultation, and Metro is making arrangements with all of the councils in the Metro Vancouver Regional District to make presentations. So I'm sure they are in touch with our staff, and we'll be setting that up sometime in the near future before the end of the year. So that, I'll move on to items from prior meetings. N1 is the Aldergrove intersection road widening. Now that motion, we had a good discussion at a meeting on May 31st, and out of that, it seemed to be some consensus and agreement from council that the motion would be under the clerk's note, and it would start with council direct staff to proceed with option 3B1, balanced intersection improvements to facilitate widening of Fraser Highway and 272 Street, consistent with historic bylaws, plans, and best practice, while incorporating an adjustment to the floor space ratio (FCR) calculation to ensure no net loss in the overall density of the ultimate proposed mixed-use development on the site. So I would be happy to move that. There's a seconder. Council Long seconds it. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Councillor Richter, Councillor Woodward, and Councillor Arneson are opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. N2 is N2, N3, and N4 were deferred to full council, and as you've noticed, Councillor Davis couldn't be with us tonight, so I would ask for a motion to defer N2, N3, N4 to the next meeting to full council. Councillor Woodward moves it. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Richter, and call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. So deferred. Moves us down to items brought forward. That's recognition of Councillor Ward for information. Other business?
Yes.
Councillor Richter.
On this one, Mr. Mayor, same thing.
Yes, okay. I'll let you, yeah, we'll just give you a minute.
One
Thank you.
second, hold it before he leaves.
Yeah.
I have other business besides.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll start with this one, and then we'll come back.
We're on P1. I don't want
P1, that's correct. Yeah, you
Okay.
declare conflict. Thank you.
Where does this other actual business come
We're in
from?
other business now, so P1, we'll proceed with P1, P2, and then I'll ask for
All right.
more other business in the council. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wait for Councillor Wood is still here. We're
Okay.
just putting him in the waiting room. Okay, that looks like, oh, it still has pictures there. Ms. Bauer, just give it a minute.
He's watching
is-
anyway.
Is Councillor Woodward still in the meeting? Does he not go in the waiting room? He's declared conflict.
Sorry.
Just give us a minute here. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Councillor Richter.
Yes, I will move the motion that the Dashner delegation of May 31st, 2021 be referred to staff for a report on the potential process and timeline to update the 20-year-old Fort Langley streetscape plan.
So moved. Second, Ferguson.
Councillor Ferguson seconds it. Okay, I do have an amendment I'd like to make, but I'd like to hear from Council first. Councillor Richter, do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I think a very valid point was raised that perhaps it's time for us to review this plan if it's 20 years old. A lot has changed in Fort Langley in the last 20 years, and I think that it's probably good that staff give us some sort of indication on what it will take time and resource-wise in order to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Would this be on staff's work plan already? I mean, here we are discussing something from a delegation, but curiously, would staff already be doing this, or is it scheduled at some point, or is it even required in staff's perspective?
I'll ask Mr. Seffi.
Thank you, Your Worship. The quick answer is no. It is not currently on staff's work program, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Okay, well then, I don't know why we would allow it to be pushed in there if staff aren't ready to do it anyway.
So what the motion is just for a report on potential process and timeline. So it's not, this isn't a request for them to engage in it. It's really to come back, and at that time we could discuss where in the work plan it would go. So I would like to make an amendment. I would like to add that in addition, the staff report back on the potential process and timeline to update the Fort Langley community plan. So I think that's quite, I'll speak to it after Councillor Coons seconds it. So my concern is that that is also outdated, and it was written in a day when the businesses in that area were on septic tank. Now they have hookup to sewer, and there's been a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes coming up, and I think it would be important for us to have an opportunity to review that community plan moving forward. So that's why I've added that as an amendment. So with that, on the amendment, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that as an amendment so much, Mr. Mayor, as a totally separate idea. But if it's the idea that staff will give us some sort of indication of the work that's necessary, I know that the issue of updating the Fort Langley community plan has come to council several times over the past few years. I know I've brought it there at least once. And staff have been quite clear that there are other priorities like Brookswood, Willoughby, et cetera, that are in their framework right now. So I just want to make sure that this amendment will treat the two items as separate but perhaps corollary items.
Yes, I think so, because it's in addition. So I thought, streetscape plan, community plan, there is a bit of a marriage there, but yeah, this would come back because it's in addition, so they could bring it back separately.
And they're just going to tell us whether or not they've got the time to do either.
That's right,
or
where it would plug in. Thank you. Councillor Long.
Yeah, I'd just like to make sure, would you mind if we could separate the two? I see the corollary, but we could just
certainly
separation so I can vote accordingly. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah, so want to vote one day.
So if we move, if you want to move separation, Councillor Long, and seconded, there's a seconder on separation. It's just somebody, Councillor Arneson, just all in favor of separation, and those opposed. Okay, Councillor Richter's opposed. It carries for separation. We'll carry on with this speaker list. Councillor Long, did you still wish to speak to either one?
No, I'm fine. I got my hand up there for other business. Maybe I'll take it down and put it back.
Take it down. We'll get to you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask through the staff, is the Fort Langley streetscape plan part of the Fort Langley community plan? Like, is it part of that plan or no?
Mr. Seffi?
Your worship, the way that the plan came to be, it's a separate one. But thinking about it now, as Councillor Whitmarsh was posing the question, I don't think there's anything stopping us. It would just mean that if there was a fairly minor change to the streetscape plan, it would trigger a community plan amendment. So I think it would be best, if you were to ask staff's opinion, I think it would be best to keep them separate.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, sorry, I just missed that. If you repeat, you think
He said it would help. It would help staff to keep it separate. So which we're doing here. Staff have basically two requests within the same motion, in the same area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, I was just wondering if I may, through Chair to Staff, when was the last time the Fort Langley plan was actually reviewed or looked at, if I may?
Just looking at it, Your Worship, to get the actual number, 1987.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I just also wanted to say that I know when they added say some more sewer to the main core and some other parts, that wasn't done in the 80s. That was probably done in the 90s. Is that correct, or do you remember that?
It was post 87, definitely.
That's correct. Your Worship, the question that Councillor Ferguson asked when I responded in 1987, he did say comprehensive review. The other ones I wouldn't call comprehensive. There have been amendments, certainly there have been many amendments since then, but not a comprehensive review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long?
Yeah, with this, okay, so there's two parts to the motion. I'll speak to not supporting one, but first let me ask a question on the second part, the OCP. Would that be including parking requirements? Would that be included in that?
I would think that's all.
That's certainly something
revision.
that hasn't been visited for a long time,
Yes.
and the whole principle behind the exemption or the reduction is changed quite a bit. Yeah, and I won't support this first part that Councillor Richter brought forward because of this. Mr. Dashner represents a private company of some kind or an organization. It's not public. He told me that anyone could join. Went to the website, and all he could do is sign up for a newsletter. You can't actually be part of this organization that he supposedly represents. I think it's something that represents particular landowners in the village. It's not coming from community groups, volunteer groups, or groups that are representing the entire community. It's from a particular segment. So why we would put staff to work for that, I don't know, except can only imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's important whether it comes from a group or from an individual. I think anything that reaches council's table is important to consider and not to outright object to it. So I think Mr. Dashner made a good case for the need to review, update this particular requirement. I also think it's important that we ask staff if this can be fit within their work plan and what the cost of that would be.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
My understanding when Mr. Dashner did come, he just had some common sense things like there are some cracks in sidewalks, uneven sidewalks. There's a little bit of land, just a little things he had as well that staff, I wouldn't expect this motion to be staff have to pick and choose how much time they do and what they can do and not do, because especially if there's another motion for reviewing the community plan. So that's all I was thinking about when the motion was put forward.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question on both of them. I'll start with the first one. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Long, Councillor Arneson opposed. Move to the second part, the Fort Langley Community Plan. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Arneson opposed. It carries. Both carry. Thank you. You can ask Councillor Woodward to return. Welcome back. So now we'll move on to P2 and Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'll just move this and give a little bit of background.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Is there a second by Councilor Richard? Councilor Woodward, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks. This is not, there's no trickery involved here. This is about the Yorkson Community Plan, the original timelines. Maybe Mr. Backen can give some background. The original timelines are getting a bit long in the tooth. Yorkson Community Park has actually been developed in a different order than originally anticipated, and some of those cost estimates might be out of date. So I wanted to get that information updated and get that referred to council for the 2022 budget, just to have a look at that. Mr. Backen, maybe you could add to that, that would be in a way that might be helpful. Thanks.
Mr. Backen, go.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, it's quite correct. The plan originally it was comprised, and I'll use this as generally, was to go north to south, but because of some funding opportunities that arose and some realignments that we were able to achieve, we were able to actually develop the park more based on the type of facility or the type of field as opposed to just simply a directional node. The result of that has been that we have a few gaps that I think are existing in terms of some of the amenities, and I think this would likely be consistent with trying to determine what those gaps are and how we could actually finish the park and on what timeline.
Great, thank you. Councilor Richter.
Yeah, I just had a request through to Mr. Backen and staff with regards to including some sort of free play drop-in space for people to use fields if Yorkson Community Plan or Community Park is going to be sports groups only, or if there will be access on this field somewhere for the people who live around it just to drop in and kick a ball around. Would that be included?
Mr. Seffi, do you have any comments on that? There he is.
Your Worship, depending on council direction, it could be, I guess, incorporated.
Okay, am I to take that as a requirement for an amendment? Because if it does require an amendment, I'm happy to put that on.
Certainly, let's ask Mr. Seffi. So there's still some work to be done. This is really just a projected cost and timeline request. So would that be helpful, or is that something that you would undertake as some of the options when you bring it back to council at the budget time?
Your Worship, if I understand the suggestion that Councillor Richter put forward, it would require a bit more analysis and I guess a whole new different way of looking at bookings. At this stage, currently, as council or members of council may be aware, various levels of parks are used for different things, different activities by different user groups. The neighborhood parks, which are closest to residential neighborhoods and are within walking distance, are the ones that can act for, I guess, activity areas for drop-in. If we were to look at how we could accommodate such uses, such demands at community level parks, it would require a bit more in-depth analysis.
Okay, well, the reason why I raise this is because we saw on a map earlier today in today's meeting that Fort Langley has a community park. Is that community park only able to be booked by organized sports groups? Or can people who live around that park drop in and kick a ball around?
I believe, Your Worship, I may have to get back to council on this, but I think it would be a question of priority. So priority would be given to organized sport activities, but doesn't preclude members of the community ad hoc appearing and if the fields are available to throw the ball around.
Okay, well, in the case of Yorkson, it is a community park, but it's very highly densified around that park. And I think the people who live in the high density around that park need to have an area of it that they can just drop in and kick a ball around if they want to, and not have to pre-book the park in order to do that. So I will make that amendment that this includes looking at a drop-in area in the Yorkson Community Park for general community use without booking.
Thank you. So you make an amendment? Is there a seconder to that?
Second, Ferguson.
Okay, so on the amendment, is there any discussion? Councilor Woodward?
Yeah, so I'm just going to clarify. I actually think this is a pretty important item to discuss generally, not just for York's Community Park, but for Willoughby and the LEC overall, and potentially some other park areas as well. The notice of motion that's underlying the amendment was not contemplating any changes or proposing any changes to the Yorkton Community Park Plan as it sits now here in 2021. In the original 10-year estimate, Tennis was in phase 10 in 2025. And that's contemplating an expenditure which we didn't have to make. So for the amendment, to me, that would be changing the park plan, which I'm happy to consider that, but that's not what the notice of motion was attempting. It was simply attempting to get the cost estimate updated and look at a current phasing plan for the 2022 budget. So I'm not sure if that's the budget is the best place to try to change the park plan, but I certainly support the discussion. I just don't want to sidetrack the effort to get an updated phasing plan for Yorkton. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Long?
Yeah, this is completely upsetting. This has nothing to do with the motion. The motion is specific to get some information from staff. This concept of introducing time, that's why I think Mr. Sapie was hesitant to give a response. What are we proposing? Is that we're going to book between certain times that the public can come down? Because you have to manage the bookings of the parks. You can't just say whatever. But currently, that is the case. Councilor Richter may not know, but if you go by a park and there's nobody there, you can kick a ball around, you can walk around, you can do all kinds of activities there. But if there's organized sports have booked it, just like a picnic shelter, just like anything else in the township, if it's booked for certain events, they take a priority because they have made a reservation. So this is creating a whole new, well, first of all, I don't see how it pertains at all to the notice of motion. And secondly, I think it opens up a whole different way of looking at things. If we want to now have that policy applied to all parts of the township, good grief, it's going to be, it doesn't sound like it makes any sense to me at all. If you want to kick a ball around it and there's nobody on the field, go ahead. But so Your Worship, I don't know how you're going to deal with this. It's been a tough day here, but this has nothing to do with the motion. By adding it to the motion, it makes it very complex and difficult to vote on from my perspective. Maybe Councilor Richter can just talk to staff later on about wanting to kick the ball around the park.
Thank you. It is, I know it's a difficult one, but I do believe it's an appropriate amendment because it's asking for something. However, I'll go through the speaker list. I put myself on after Councilor Whitmarsh, so I'll wait for my time. Councilor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, I don't think that this amendment should be part of this motion. I agree with Councilor Woodward. I think it should be separate. I think this is the motion that Councilor Woodward has brought forward is an important one, and I'm interested in getting that update. I think that what Councilor Richter is talking about, it might be an important topic about field usage across Langley. It feels a little bit like, to me, we're getting a bit into the operations of things, but if it is going to be a conversation, I think it's something that we would have our Parks and Rec staff come and meet with us and maybe make a presentation about bookings and the usage of fields, and we can discuss that as a separate item, but I don't think it should be part of this motion.
Thank you. So with that, I'm just going to ask the clerk the amendment. Can you read back the amendment just so I'm sure, because I believe it was about capital, not about programming. If it was about programming, I tend to agree. Can you read back the amendment?
The amendment was to add a drop-in area for general use for the public.
Okay, thank you. So I interpreted that as more of a capital. It's an area. It's not about scheduling. It's an area where people could drop in, like a free play area around the area, which wouldn't be like a soccer field or baseball diamond and that sort of thing. That's the way I interpreted it. So I interpreted it as more of a capital, a design feature, not a programming feature. So that's why I've allowed it, the amendment. I'm opposed to the amendment. I think it's a great idea, but I agree. I've spent 15 years coaching my kids soccer all over town, all over Lower Mainland, and certainly we get booked. We got booked for times, but there's lots of free time in between where we could find space to kick balls around the fringes of the parks and that sort of thing. There was space and when no games were going on. So I do appreciate the intent, but I think for this purpose, I'll be against the amendment. Councilor Woodward. You're on mute.
Yes, I am. I actually just want to clarify remarks. I'm actually in favor of the amendment, so maybe didn't make that clear. I think as long as it comes back as 2 items, as long as we get an update, phasing plan, and cost estimate. The original cost estimate document done by Benny is dated October 21st, 2015. So, and I think that that's important. And one of the things that's in there is Yorkson Green natural grass fields, and I think that those fields and some options for potentially visiting the park where you don't have to be a user group. It's an important conversation. I think we could look at that as part of the budget process, but I just wanted to clarify that I support it. But I do think that it's a larger conversation that doesn't just apply to Yorkton Community Park, but why not have it there and see if it goes anywhere? Thanks.
Great. Thank you. With that clarification. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Councillor Long, Mayor Froese, Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Kunst. Amendment fails. Back to the main motion. Councillor Woodward, I had you on the list for the main motion. Do you wish first?
No, I hope people have clarified if there's any other questions, but this is to update the information from 2015 and see if there can be a revised phasing plan to have it sped up faster and completed before 2025.
Thanks. Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, thank you. I know I had a chance to tour the new tennis facility. I know other members of council have toured it as well. So I put the challenge out to anybody that wants to take me on to a tennis match. The challenge is out there.
All right. It's been a long time since I've done that. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you. Other business. Council Long had asked for other business right at the beginning. I'll put Council Long on, and then Council.
Thank you very much, Worship. There were 2 items with the Zosher. I think if you could write a letter or work with staff and try and get a hold of the owners and encourage them.
Okay.
You need a motion for that? Or you gonna take
I think the Brookswood Plaza direction. So Mr. Back can note that down, and I agree. I can write a letter to the owners.
Yeah, because we can't.
Referring to the delegation requesting some improvements.
Yeah, and maybe we could correspond with the Merchants Association or something. But
Sure.
More importantly, or not more importantly, but also the Shared Waters Alliance. You already said that you would accept an invitation from anybody to meet in the fall. So I hope that will come. And I understand it wouldn't just be one council. Anybody from council could attend this potential gathering of the South of the Fraser, which I really look forward to sometime after September 7th or whatever the date that the PHO allows. But the staff support that they're asking for, maybe Mr. Bakken could comment, because I believe we're already somewhat involved and they're asking for a little commitment. I know that Christy mentioned 1 or 2 meetings a year, maybe 3, where we could have somebody at the round table from staff to keep us all apprised of how that initiative is going. So I'd like to make that motion, but perhaps Mr. Bakken needs to say something. If not,
I can be direction too, because staff can certainly assign someone to that. It's several meetings a year, and there's always someone in the water department that could go. And on the invitation, it's not our event, but I would hope that they would put the invitation out to all of council, and so certainly when that does come, it'll be distributed to council for information. Mr. Bakken, is that sufficient? Just the direction, having consistency, I think is what they're asking for. And I think we can accommodate that without a motion. If that's okay with you, Councillor Long? Okay, thank you. Councillor, sorry? Yeah, that'll work. Councillor Richter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of items to go through. The first one is with regards to the Aldergrove Water Park playground that's outside the water park proper. And last week there were some slides that were taken off and replaced because apparently they weren't living up to warranty. With the hot sun beating on them, there was the potential for structural and or safety concerns. So staff apparently asked that these playground slides be replaced under warranty, and that they were going to be replaced with metal slides. So far so good. Unfortunately, this got on to social media, and there was a bit of an issue around whether or not these slides were defective, and if in fact they were defective, why would we be allowing them to be resold on to the public? Now, again, it appears that it is the owner of the equipment, which is the company that installed the slides, that put them up for sale on the Vancouver Buy and Sell Network. But I think that the public has raised a very key question, and that is, if these slides weren't good enough to uphold under our warranty, and the company has removed them to replace them under warranty, but the company has now turned around and put them up for sale to the public. Is this a matter that the township should be quite concerned about, i.e., is the township sort of turning a blind eye to defective or potentially defective equipment that wasn't good enough for us being sold to the public? And I think council should be getting a report on this, and the report should focus on, was the material defective? Why did it not stand up to warranty? And if it is going to be resold, should we be saying, in our opinion, it shouldn't be resold? So those are the three questions that I think the staff report should address. Now, do you want me to put a motion forward?
Well, I'd like to get some, no, I discussed this earlier with Mr. Back and then got some background information on it also. I know what we really should be concerned about is the safety. Are they unsafe? And as I understand it, they're not unsafe. It's just that the type of material may not. And because we had a warranty, we're able to cash in on the warranty and get them replaced. However, there wasn't a safety issue. It's just that we were the first buyer of brand new set that under warranty we could get it replaced, but the owner has full right to sell them as long as they're selling them as a used product. But Mr. Backen, maybe you could provide some more of the legal issues that the township might focus on, and I don't know what else the report would be able to say.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's helpful to have the issue focused in terms of what the concern became. The fundamental problem we had with the slides wasn't any immediate safety concern. It was really their long-term wear and tear and how some of the metal fasteners reacting with the plastic could break down over time. The use in a public facility is much greater than in a private facility or private use in a backyard or something of that nature. So it could presumably operate there for a period of time, whereas for us it would mean early replacement and have different impacts if the thing failed, say 5 years into it as opposed to 10 years into its life cycle. The second problem, I guess, that we hadn't thought of was the actual use itself. The nature of the slide is such that it could be used for other purposes, such as for packaging or sliding packages down from one floor to the next. It could be used for other uses that I don't think we'd originally contemplated that would be appropriate to have a resale. So ultimately, the use of the product itself would be, or the safety of the product itself in the longer term, not immediate, but the longer term, would depend upon the actual use intended. And if the use intended was a less stringent or less onerous, it would probably last for the length of its originally predicted life cycle. The ownership of it is actually not with the contractor, but a subcontractor. The actual issues or the installation occurred as part of the overall project, and after these issues were discovered, we just simply called on the warranty to ensure that we'd have a better economic return over the medium to long term.
Okay, so is it possible for us to get a written statement to this effect that we can post on that social media site to allay any concerns that the public have that we were backing defective material going out for public use or public resale?
Your Worship, we with this information, we could draft a bit of a commentary, I guess, in terms of the concerns that were raised. I haven't thought about that in terms before, but we certainly have the ability to draft something that we could simply comment that we had no immediate safety concerns, nor do we have any jurisdiction about immediate safety concerns. Even if the product was failing, we'd have no jurisdiction in any event to try to deal with it because it would be salvaged to the party that was using it. And as I said, they could be using it for warehouse purposes.
Okay, well, I think such a statement would be helpful if one could be put in items distributed. Okay, second item, I'd like to put a notice of motion forward that council requests staff to prepare a report on the need, costs, and scope of a review of the IT system with regards to protections against ransomware. So that's a notice of motion for the next meeting. The third thing that I wanted to go through is there's a number of items distributed that came out both on June 10th and then again today. Item number 16 on page 25, and it was addressed in an email or in a letter in today's items distributed concerning 207 A Street between 82nd and 84th, and whether or not this particular street could be taken over by the township. And I wasn't clear from the report that came today why we couldn't take it back over.
I know this has come up in the past. I don't think we ever had ownership of it. It was always the strata. When the development was brought forward to council before my time, it was part of the application that was the road. So we never relinquished the road because we never owned it in the first place. It's always been that property. Mr. Backen, I've gone through this a few times with residents. This is not the first one we've seen. Mr. Backen?
That's correct, Your Worship. It's the one I'm thinking of by the middle school. That street was actually put in place by the strata. Therefore, it's their obligation to maintain and operate it. I think they'd be quite happy if we were to take over the maintenance and operation. There are some issues, I think, as to, I'm going by memory here, in terms of its width or something of that nature, because it was a strata road. It would simply mean shifting the cost burden for something that was a development item from the private enterprise to the township. It could be done, but we've seen no benefit to the township in doing so historically, and we've simply maintained that it should be maintained by the strata in accordance with the original development. But it's something that we could, if we wanted to, take over the road, I suppose.
Okay, but I guess the concern that I have is in one of the letters from the strata, they're saying, well, if it's our road, we're going to put gates blocking either end of it.
Yeah,
to prevent public use of it. Do they have the right to do that?
No, they don't. There's a covenant on it. I know one time they even put a sign up, and that sign got taken down by our people because there's a covenant. This is public access road. It was part of the application at the time. But as Mr. Backen said, council could, if they wish to, take over. But it comes back every couple of years, this one. Mr. Backen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, item number 20 on page 38, again, this is from the June 10th items. It concerns contaminated soil removal at 698-2206 Street. And it says in there that unless council directs otherwise, staff will proceed with the issuance of the soil removal permit, foregoing public notification and petition processes. I'm just curious, why would we not notify the public that this is being done because the soil is contaminated?
Backen? Or Mr. Seffi? Mr. Seffi?
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue wasn't one of notifying the public, Your Worship. The issue was one of, I guess, petitioning the public. And the reason being, this is an environmental necessity that could affect public health and safety. And as such, staff felt obligated to deal with it and is just informing council that it will forego the normal petition process because that is typically what's required to get the consent of the neighbors. That said, Your Worship, we can certainly notify the affected area residents so that they're aware.
Yeah, well, the report actually says foregoing the public notification and petition processes. I can understand the and petition processes, but what I don't understand is why wouldn't we notify the area residents or put something on the township page saying this is being done because of soil contamination. Of course, that's going to raise the question of what type of soil contamination, probably. But yeah, if something could be posted publicly so the people in the area know why this is being done. Item number 25 on page 48 on June 10th, as well as item number 23 on page 93 in the items distributed today, concern that very unfortunate accident with the young student that was crossing 200th Street. And I'm wondering if staff could perhaps give council some sort of an update as to ways to solve this problem. Like one of the things I think we could do is ask TransLink to move the bus shelter away from 76th Avenue and down to 72nd Avenue. Another thing might be to go ahead and fast track opening up 76th Avenue westbound, or 76th Avenue west off, and get some sort of lights in there. So is this something that staff could perhaps give an update to council on?
Mr. Back, yes. Yes, he says yes. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 28 on page 54, speeding on 60th Avenue between 6 and 8 and 4 to 7. Can something be done about that?
We'll notify the RCMP for Mr. Back. Would that be appropriate? Yes, we'll let the RCMP know. We'll forward it to them.
Okay. And then item number 25 on page 56, a status report on the Rod and Gun Club. And again, this is out of June 10th. So item 29, page 56. And it concerns noise, obviously. Okay. On today's items distributed, number 12 on page 61 is concerning opening the unopened road along 12th Avenue between 244th and 248th as a pedestrian and dog walking trail. Is that something that could be done easily, or is that just an unopened road allowance? Like, who owns that land? Can we open it up as a trail?
Mr. Back, I think, is that, sorry, I'm just catching up here. Is that item number 12?
Item number 12, yeah.
Yeah,
Page
so that's
60.
before the Engineering and Property Service Department. So I think Mr. Seffi probably provided some update once they've had a look at it. Is that correct, Mr. Seffi?
That's correct, Your Worship, and we can provide council with a copy of the response to the individual.
Thank you.
Okay. And then item number 19 on page 83, I'm wondering, will a response be sent to this individual concerning the reopening of baseball season? Because I assume that things are going to start opening up after the provincial health announcements today.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, we have just had that announcement today, and Mr. Backen's on it, so we'll certainly get back to him, or we'll have our ELC get back to him.
Okay. And then the last item is with regards to number 22 on page 86. There seems to be quite a bit of history around this property on 88th Avenue, 26092. And I'm wondering if council could get some sort of a status report on what the real issue is. It just seems like the resident in question is back and forth rating with staff, and I'm not quite sure what the issue is and if council has a role in solving it.
Okay, thank you. Take care. We'll get that back.
Great,
Thank you.
and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Woodward.
Yeah, thanks. I want to bring up, I normally don't do this, but item 21 on June 14th. I just kind of wanted to get a brief idea of what this is about. It says here, Dear Mark and Mayor and Council, you wrote to us and said, well, I didn't write to him, and I don't know what he's talking about.
5.
Item 21 on the June 14th, page 85, yeah.
Yeah. Dear Mark and Mayor and Council. Why are you just writing out to everybody? You wrote to us and said.
That I don't know what this is about.
It might have been staff. I don't know. I wrote to him, but I don't know. Mr. Backen's just looking it up.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. People.
No, Your Worship,
You
this
wrote
is
this
a
and
continuing,
Yeah, go ahead.
continuing matter with a resident that's gone back and forth, and we've appointed a primary staff liaison to deal with the issues, and they continue to evolve. One of the issues is requiring the maintenance in a building is maintenance that would relate to the use of deodorizer, something that should be considered maintenance. I give that as an illustration. So we anticipate further communications. There's been no communications. Well, there's been several communications, but this communication relates to something back in a couple of years ago or something, I believe. So
Okay.
Sorry,
I just
sorry, Ms.
wanted
Bauer.
to double check, because is there some way to communicate with this individual with the idea that I'm not communicating with him, and I don't think council's communicating with him?
Yeah.
I don't want him under
They
the
were,
impression that,
so
Yeah,
mayor.
he may have just been using that you as a generic,
yeah.
you, the township, somebody, I don't know, just kind of thrown out there.
It's possible, Your Worship. As I said to begin with, we've requested that all communications go through a certain person. The immediate result has been then a sporadic number of communications to a whole variety of persons. So if you say left, I say right. So we're going through that phase at the moment.
Okay, that's good enough. I can talk about more of that offline. The other thing I wanted to ask a bit about was the COVID restart plan. And just get, now that we have that in a memo form, which I appreciate, I wanted to ask if there's, some more rationale I can get very briefly even, why the civic facility can't be opened until September.
Your Worship, I'm trying to. I don't have a plan for me, but I believe part of the timing was it depends very much on the public health orders. I think there's some partial openings that are set to happen in July. The remainder of the time frame, I guess we can look into in terms of trying to accelerate it. But I think it was primarily because of staffing issues, staff protection, and the state of the public health orders. But I do believe that there has been provisions made for such things as tax collection and other elements such as that.
Yeah, no, I saw the opening for tax collection, which I think is important, and that's kind of what I was raising it. If we can open it for tax collection, why can't we open it in a limited way, in a safe way, like other facilities? So, maybe I can discuss it a bit more offline if you prefer that. But I just want to understand, because unless I got that particular detail wrong, the plan currently was to open that in September, and I'm just curious, why we couldn't speed that up. I mean, if I can travel to Kelowna, I can't even go to the township. So I'm just curious if there's some way to maybe look at speeding that up to start to get our administrative facilities back open to the public.
Your Worship, I can recall a bit more now. I believe that the intent is to have partial openings, as was referenced, including some flexibility for some of the counters that may be available. We have some levels of concern, I guess, by staff members in terms of when they may actually have their full inoculation and vaccinations. And part of the concern is that there's I guess, an issue that until they're fully vaccinated and through their 14-day period, that they don't feel comfortable dealing with the public. So we have to put some safeguards in place. That makes it very much a floating time period because we don't know exactly when and how that will be affected, but it is our goal to open up progressively and as quickly as we can, making sure we can get everyone through the vaccination process, that being all those that wish to.
Okay, so the fully vaccinated status for staff in the administrative building was not in and if it was, I missed it, was not in the restart plan. So those are some good details, and that answers my questions. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I see no further other business, so now I'm going to ask for motion to resolve into special closed meeting for the items on the agenda, and I believe there's nothing on table. Is that correct, Ms. Bauer? Okay, so motion moved by Councilor Whitmarsh is scratching his head, so I'm taking that as a motion. Thank you. And second by Councilor Long and Councilor Richter.
Yes, I'd like to add a legal item, please.
Legal, thank you. And Councilor Woodward.
Property, please.
Property, okay, thank you. Okay, with those two, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Now a motion to terminate.
Termination.
Councilor Whitmarsh and seconder, Councilor Long. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Richter, I see your hand up. Did I miss something? Okay, we come back
I
here.
just forgot to take it down.
No problem. Okay. Okay, so give 5 minutes for the clerk to switch things over.
And we just stay on
this one.
channel.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm gonna take my jacket off. It's 9,000 degrees in here. Or I'm now